Right, let us look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Kieran, I know you're close to it, obviously, as the man on the scene. We were talking about the Texans and saying, will they be able to keep the momentum going from the great first year that they had under D'Amico Ryans and with CJ Stroud as quarterback into year two? The Jags are kind of one of the examples of what can happen when you go into the season with momentum. You know, they've done so well under first year of the or in the first year of Doug Peterson's reign as head coach in Jacksonville, got to the playoffs, won a playoff game. Everything was on the up and up. And I think, you know, if we went around the houses this time last year, I think we'd all pick Jacksonville as the likely winners of this division. It didn't work out that way. It was all going so well until it wasn't. Have they done enough, do you think, to put them in a position where they can get it right this year? Obviously, Trevor Lawrence got his payday during the offseason, which is probably the most pertinent place to start.
Yeah, well, we'll start with Trevor. Trevor got his money, and then, you know, what does every team in the NFL want? They want the franchise quarterback, and that's what they have right now. We can all debate the amount of money that they paid for him. We can all debate whether he's worth it. The way the NFL is right now, that's the going rate. So the Jacksonville Jags have their quarterback for the next however many years. It's the tale of, you know, there's a couple of narratives in Jacksonville right now. I mean, obviously they started 8-3, everything was looking great, and that awful kind of decline, which basically started that Monday night game against the Bengals when they lost in overtime with Jake Browning for the Bengals, and nothing happened. Nothing good happened after that. They had one decent game where they beat the Panthers at home, but that wasn't hard. A lot of teams did that. But we're coming to year 3 of Doug Peterson, and it's NFL owners are, they are, let's make this happen right now. We got a window, let's make it happen. Jaguars have upgraded in a lot of very good positions. I mean, yes, they did lose Calvin Ridley, but picking up people like Gabe Davis, they drafted Brian Thomas out of Texas. They picked up Arik Armstead, who's on the pup list at the moment. A big pickup for them was Mitch Morse, the center from the Bills. I like that pick because the Jags needed O-line bolstering like crazy. That's a bit of a question mark still. They did a little bit of work with it, but that's still a question mark. A lot of other things in play. I mean, the stadium talk, that's all taken care of now. You know, that they can kind of put away the talk of the Jags playing in London full time for a good long time. But just to go back to Lawrence, yes, he got paid. A lot of questions still. I mean, I think he's going to work out. I think he's going to be fine. A lot of people are going to have to realize that year with Urban Meyer is going to have to be scrapped. The stats weren't great. I mean, if you look at Lawrence's first 3 years in the league, he's got 60 turnovers and 69 touchdowns, which is by far the worst kind of ratio of active quarterbacks. I mean, Josh Allen's is nowhere near that, even with all the interceptions Josh Allen has thrown. But this is the time for Lawrence to step up and say, this is my team, and we're going to make a go of this. I like the upgrades that they made. Christian Kirk is going to be back from injury. That's a big pick. That's almost like a free agent pickup. And Joshua Allen Hines, I think he goes by now. he's the cornerstone of that defense. There's a good vibe in Jacksonville right now. The all signs point towards positivity. I don't want to say Peterson's on the hot seat, but if they miss the playoffs this year, then I don't think Khan is going to have much hesitation with pressing the eject button. I do see a good season coming up for the Jags. On top of the free agency stuff and on top of the good draft. I don't think there's going to be a repeat of last year's precipitous downfall in the last part of the season. A lot of things happened there with Lawrence catching the injury. Christian Kirk went down. A couple of things went wrong at the wrong time. A couple of close losses, especially that overtime loss to Cincinnati. They've learned a lot of lessons from that. It's a big year for Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator. There's a lot of kind of rumblings about his qualities and his style of offense over the last two years or so. But I think with an upgrade at certain positions, especially with the wide receiver room, and I haven't even mentioned Evan Engram, who had the most, he had a career year last year after leaving the Giants. It's going to be a great battle, I think, between the Texans and the Jags. It's going to be one of those slugfests back and forth every week. One of them is going to be a game up in the division. The other is going to be a game down, and vice versa. So, I like Jaguars this year. I think they've got a much bolstered roster. And like I said, the fact that the stadium talk has been put to bed, the fact that Trevor has got his contract, all those things that were up in the air a couple of months ago have now been kind of smoothed over and taken care of. So the Jags can now focus on playing good ball, getting that kind of spot back in the playoffs, and having some good nights in the bank.
Shane, as Kieran mentioned, the Jags were 8-3 at one point, and it was all looking very rosy for them. And in fairness to them, and Kieran alluded to it there, we don't really know quite how badly Trevor Lawrence was injured, and oftentimes these things are downplayed. And that really did seem to have an impact down the stretch. They lost some games they should have won. And with a bounce of the ball, we talked about the Texans getting a couple of bounces of the ball. With a bounce of the ball, they still would have made the playoffs. That's not the way it worked out. But there's no reason to be overly pessimistic, you would have thought, about Jacksonville, unless you see it a different way.
I'm not overly pessimistic, but it's quite clear that they have quite a large Achilles heel, and that if Trevor Lawrence is injured or isn't playing 100%, don't expect the Jags to win. It's that simple. I mean, I'm not quite sure how if they have a well-established run game. I think their offensive line really needs a lot of work. I know that they seem to have bolstered a couple of positions there, and we're hoping for better results coming into this season. Fair enough, they have Evan Ingram. Fair enough, they've improved with a couple of wideouts. So it's quite clear that the aerial game is going to be their main form of attack again this year. But what happens if Trevor Lawrence has an off day? What happens if Trevor Lawrence gets injured 2 or 3 weeks in and he plays, but he's not 100% again? Fair enough, he's gotten his money. He's gotten the confidence. The organization has backed him, as they've done the right thing by doing that. But I think that there's too much relying on the talents of one man. And we can say this about a lot of teams around the league, to be fair. But I think that the Jags, or how much Trevor Lawrence means to Jaguar success was completely exposed last year. Doug Peterson, as great as a coach he is, and considering he's a coach who won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, the plan wasn't there. Trevor Lawrence was brought back too quickly, and it wasn't given the time to recover. And for the rest of the season, they were basically playing at 60% of their potential. So what happens again if that happens this year, which again is quite likely? Is there a backup plan? Is there a plan to shift to the run game a bit more? Who else is going to take more responsibility? Can the defense come up with the right number of plays? Is there a backup quarterback who can come in and be serviceable so that Trevor Lawrence can have 1 or 2 days off if he needs it? Because that's what was missing last year, the foresight to say, oh crap, what happens when TL is out? And look, if Trevor Lawrence has a fit season, it's similar to that other Florida team, the Dolphins. When they have their quarterback and he's 100% fit and he's able to sling around the ball for 17 games a season, great. They're in a really good chance to go and take the division. They're in a really good chance to find a way to move on later into the year. But I just think that their offense isn't diverse enough to make me think, okay, these are the guys I think that are going to find a way to really navigate things throughout the whole season. Because we've seen it happen a couple of times with the Jags. They have a bit of a slow start to go to London. That gives them a nice boost. They have a fantastic middle of the season. And then something kind of falls off the wagon a little bit in December, January. It's happened in different different levels of extremity in the last couple of years. They did get that fantastic playoff win against the Chargers a couple of years ago. But I mean, they're just too unpredictable, I think, to say, okay, they can properly put together a Super Bowl run, which they are completely capable of doing. And I think a big missing chunk of that is offensive line, who last year I think gave away the second most amount of runs for negative yardage, and then a running back to be able to carry the ball, particularly if you have to play on the road in some of those snowy cities. I know it's a bit of a cliche when we talk about Florida teams that want to have to go and play away against those winter cities, especially when we get into the playoffs. But if you're relying on Trevor Lawrence to do everything, the way that the Bills are relying on Josh Allen to do everything, that's not going to cut it. Someone's going to find a way to stop you, or injury is going to stop you before you find a way to really get things going. So I'm really not sure where to sit on the Jaguars this season.
Brian, they're a team we do tend to get a close look at because they spend so much time over this side of the Atlantic.
Yep.
We might be seeing them in Ireland before too long as well. Fingers crossed on that one. Obviously, the Jags are one of the teams that has an interest in the Irish market under the NFL's Global Markets Programme. So they could be coming soon to a stadium near us. But where do you think they stand in an overall NFL context? I mean, obviously, we have to look at the AFC South first of all, as we have been doing, but there's still a lot of question marks. I mean, the the jury's kind of semi-out on whether Trevor Lawrence is actually, like, do you see him firmly as that top 10 quarterback? Let's start there.
He should be, but I don't think he is. I don't think he's lived up to the hype. I understand and I acknowledge what Kieran's saying about the first season being a complete disaster, and the second season was a lot better. And then last season, I do agree with Shane to an extent. They rushed him back. He had the injury against the Bengals on that Monday night. He played the following Sunday in Detroit. That was for me, that was a kind of a crazy decision. I don't think he's done enough to be worthy of a top 10. And that sounds, where's the data to back that up? But maybe you could argue they haven't put enough around him. Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver selected in the first round, we didn't really touch on him. He's going to be a key addition to the team. He has to come out and do a bit of it. For me, he has to be kind of a lights out type player. As you see, when Jamar Chase coming out of LSU year one, Odell Beckham, and potentially even Malik Neighbors with the Giants, I think they're going to have to get a huge upside from him, because I just don't think they have enough around the team otherwise offensively. And you've got some nice running backs there, and Travis Etienne and Bigsby's coming into his second year. He's a nice running back, but I don't think Trevor has elevated the team to the levels in which he should be doing. For bearing in mind, he was deemed to be a generational quarterback. I'm probably been a little bit harsh on him because we've seen him quite a few times in London.
Is that the thing, though, Brian, to be fair, that kind of holds him back when you have that label? And we'll see how Caleb gets on in Chicago this year. He's the next guy who's bearing that millstone around his neck. But like I look at Lawrence at times and I think he makes sensational throws, and I think, oh, I see it. But for me, for a guy who comes with such lofty expectations, he also makes terrible throws. It's not so much that the ceiling isn't there; it's that sometimes the floor just seems to fall out from under him. Yeah,
and strangely enough, I was actually looking at some of his content today as we were preparing for this. There was a number of interceptions even from the season, which was a really productive season, the one in which they went to the playoffs and they got beaten by the Chiefs in the divisional round. And some of his interceptions were erratic at times, and that's the thing. It's a high ceiling, but there's days when it's very off, and when it's very off, it really goes haywire. I think that Titans game towards the back end of the season, where whilst they'd lost a lot of games towards the back end of the season, it was put on his shoulders to create a drive towards the end to go and win that game. And that's what you want from your $55 million quarterback, isn't it? You want the ball with 2.5 minutes to go on the road in a division. He'll make the plays. And he got picked off from that last drive. I know at that stage you could argue that the season was gone awry anyway, but it just didn't strike me as a quarterback right now who was worthy of that contract. But I understand with the Jags, like there's two elements to this. The Jags secure him and they kind of put their trust in him, and he comes out and has a really, really stellar season. But maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he needs to solidify himself with the team. I would argue that maybe Hines Allen is more of a player for them in terms of the importance. He had 70.5 sacks last year. Like, as much as we love quarterbacks and it's a quarterback-driven league, sometimes you got to recognize the better player in the team maybe on the defense. That he got paid this offseason. Maybe he's the guy that kind of leads the team at the forefront. But we will see them twice, as I said. We will see them twice in London again. So we do get an opportunity to be up close and personal, shall we say. The schedule hasn't been kind to them. Kind of, you look at the schedule, they're starting away with the Dolphins. They got the Browns in week 2, Buffalo week 3. Then they got 2 divisional games before they even hit London. It looks tough on paper. It is on paper. Every season's different. But right now, it's hard to see them being 3-1, maybe potentially going over to London.